Afternoon, everybody. My name is Angie Andreessen. I'm the business analyst here at DLI working on the modernization program. So today, what we are going to be doing is running through some of the questions. I apologize, I was getting an echo there. I just needed to mute everyone. Some of the questions and comments that have been coming through with group administrators and group management. So you'll know if you were in our last answer hour, that was a little bit more general towards the QRC functionality. This one is going to be specifically for our QRC group administrators. And Julie, I saw your comment. There was just enough time between the last few minutes or the last few meetings to make a sandwich. So yeah, a lot of you I know are just in the 11 o'clock. So I appreciate you all joining me for this answer hour as well. So a few housekeeping items. I am going to go ahead and record this meeting. We'll make it available on the DLI website following the answer hour as soon as we can get it loaded and over to communications. Additionally, I did mute you all and disable video just because we have a number of folks on the call in order to minimize background noise and make sure that we have enough bandwidth to make sure everybody is able to see the PowerPoint and my screen. And then additionally, I would love if you guys could put any of your questions that you have or comments in the chat. That just makes it so much easier for us to track. So I appreciate your continued help with that. So jumping right into the agenda. I structured this one just a little bit differently than our previous answer hours. And I apologize, I know this group was scheduled for an answer hour last week and that was canceled last minute. I apologize, I was incredibly ill last week and had to be gone from the office for a few days. And unfortunately, the cancellations did not go out in time for you all. So I sincerely apologize for that. What we're going to work on today is we're going to look at the FAQs that I mentioned. I'm going to look at the Q&As that you guys have, and then we'll run through some demo scenarios if necessary, and then I'll just run through the upcoming answer hour sessions for next week. So before I get into these FAQs, I've got a few questions in the chat that I received. So Sally, you don't have my Rehab Cases tab as an administrator. You're listed as a general user. You should still have that as long as you are related to QRCs within your firm. We'll go through the relationships in just a minute here. It could be something specific to your group. I know we're planning to meet with you next week, so we may just need to look through that then, but I'll kind of run through that here in a few minutes. Deb, you mentioned you're having issues with your filter functionality. I believe that seems to be an isolated incident. I know we took that down as well, so that's something that we'll take a look at when we meet with you as well. Lisa, you had a question. Was the previous meeting recorded? Yes, the previous meeting was recorded, so we'll make sure to get that one up on the website as well. And Deb, as a group administrator, you do not have access to your QRC's rehab cases or the ability to file on their behalf. So I know that is right now, it could be related to the issues that we discussed in the last meeting regarding the staff and users or staff and interns tab for your rehab firms. So we are taking a look at that one. And Sarah, I just saw your question about entering the QRC information when completing a change of QRC R3. We did discuss that briefly in the last meeting. Again, this meeting is going to be focused on the group management aspect, so less so on the general QRC questions, but we'll be sure to get that taken down, and I will have Mike Hill reach out to you with that information. So running through the FAQs, these are a lot of the frequently asked questions that we've been getting from rehab group admins. So the biggest one by far has been users that are still showing up as pending. You all were having kind of an extended issue with the users who were showing up as pending in your rehab firm. For some reason, there was a little bit of a disconnect when those users registered in campus that kind of went along with their QRC registrations in the system. So if for some reason it was keeping them as pending, we have resolved that. If you are still seeing people listed as pending in your firm, please send us an email, let us know. I would encourage you to confirm with that user that they are registered in campus and confirm the email address that they are registered with. Make sure that that all matches. If everything looks good, please send us an email so that we can investigate that further, as that should no longer be occurring. Next, how do I change permissions for users? I'm going to go ahead and get into my test environment here, and I'll give you guys just a little bit of an overview for your permissions. Another question that kind of goes along with that, I do get this question pretty frequently about what permissions people actually need to do their work as rehab providers. So we'll cover that as well. So I'm going to go ahead into my group. I'll click Manage Group. And you see here, I have just a ton of users. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at Mary. So if I wanted to change Mary's permissions, all I would need to do is click this Edit button. I could remove or add any of these permissions from Mary. Now, another question that a lot of people have asked is just what permissions do the QRCs need just to do their work? And the answer is they don't really need any specific permissions. These are more going to be something that you're going to want to designate to one or two people in your firm. So we'll run through really quickly just the definitions of what each of these are. So your group administrator, that's going to be the person who can add or remove members, update their permissions in the group. That's all of you, or most of you. Service of process designee, that is going to be whomever you designate to receive legal service on behalf of your entire firm. So I know we've had some questions about whether everybody needs the service of process designee permission or whether just one person needs it. I would recommend just keeping it limited to a few people. The reason being because if your firm is served, everybody who has that permission gets notification of that service. Same for the designated contact for release or information requests from DLI. This is another one where if we send you all a request for information, so let's say Mike or Joanne needs to send you a letter through the system, that's probably the most realistic case. That is going to go to anybody who has this designated contact permission. So again, one that you may want to just keep limited to a handful of folks or one or two folks. Penalties falls into the exact same group. Again, if we send a penalty to you, you would be served that penalty. So your service of process designee would get a copy of that. And then your designated contact for penalties would get that as well. So anybody with that permission would get that notification of the penalty. Profile management designee, that's going to be a little bit different. It's just going to be the person or people who is allowed to update your actual profile. So let's say your rehab group name or add an additional address to your rehab group. These, just so you all are aware, they do go through a review process at DLI, so they are not immediate. So if you submit one of these, please just be patient with us as we kind of review them. If you submit it multiple times, all it will do is submit multiple requests for change. So if you've submitted one of these, that's great. We'll take a look at it and decide if we need to approve or deny it or reach out to you for additional information. And finally, the claim access administrator. This is one that you all likely are not going to use as frequently. This would really be more for your cases where your firm itself is listed as a party on the case. You have the ability to allocate that access to others within your firm. So as I mentioned, none of those are really necessary for a QRC to do their filings or for their support professionals to file on their behalf. Just some permissions that are good to have at the firm level so that you are getting important pieces of information and are able to kind of configure group information. I think that covered our next question of how should each of the permissions be allocated to my group members. So as I mentioned with those service of process designee, the request for information for penalties and the request for information, most of the time those should just be limited to one or two people in your firm just because they will all always go out whenever one of them is sent to everybody who has that permission. So keeping those more narrow is likely going to cause less of a headache, just because you won't get inundated with emails that way. All right, next, how do relationships work and what can related group members do? With that, I'm going to go back into my system. So again, looking at Mary, so Mary is a support professional. So if you are part of your firm and you are not a QRC or a QRC intern, your user type is likely going to be general. If your user type is general, what happens is you can actually be related to all the QRCs in your firm. What this allows is for you to file on their behalf. So if I needed to file an RCR for Mike or Angie, I could do that since me as Mary, I have that permission to do so. Same for Dawn or Reed. Additionally, this should give you access to their cases. Now, I know we are still doing some cleanup with those legacy cases, but if for some reason you are filing RCRs on behalf of your QRCs or your QRCs are filing RCRs and you as a related support professional are not seeing those in your My Rehab Cases queue, please reach out to us so that we can investigate it a little bit further. All right, next question. I am trying to invite someone to the group, but it says that they can not be added. Why is this? So most likely, if you're getting this error, it means that the individual is still part of another firm, or they don't have the proper user type to be added to a rehab group. So in this instance, this should be relatively rare, but if you do run into this issue, please let us know. We can kind of walk through it with you. Sometimes it is if your QRC is changing from one firm to another, it could be that they just haven't been taken out of their old firm group. That's something that we can always assist with at DLI. And the last one, why are people missing from my staff and interns tab? This is a major question that we've been getting, and a lot of firms are seeing people that are missing from their staff and interns tab. That is just due to some data issues on our end, and we are working through that one pretty diligently. We know that that is causing some issues for people who are attempting to file RCRs or subsequent R forms. So hold tight if you have people missing from your staff and interns tab. We should be resolving that one shortly. We're just working on it because it's a pretty complex one. So with that, I'm going to go back into the chat here. So Lisa, you made a really good comment on one of your cases. You said that about 20 people at one firm got it who weren't involved in the case, because if you choose the attorney, everyone who is listed as a service of process designee also gets it. It automatically checks everyone. And yes, that's exactly how it is set up. So if people have multiple service of process designees, they are all going to get that service. Stacy, how does the administrative professional get rehab file access if they do not file the RCR on behalf of the QRC? It's a great question. So that's where you would use that relationships tab. If they are related to that QRC, it should add them as a user to that case and they should have access. As I mentioned, it is a little bit dicey with some of the legacy cases right now, but if for some reason your related professional, administrative professionals are not being added, even if they don't file that RCR, please let us know and we'll look into that a little further. Becky, when trying to renew an intern, I cannot enter their supervisor. No one shows up in the supervisor pull down list, so the system will not let me renew it. That is a really interesting one. Becky, I'm going to make a note for us to set up a call with you either Monday or Tuesday to run through that one. I've not seen that with others, so we'll make a note if you just want to send me your email address privately so I remember. I know I have your email, but if you just want to send me a message so I remember to schedule that, that would be great. Can previously completed and filed R forms that do not show up in the My Forms tab be uploaded as a packet with the proof of service to the submit a filing, or do they need to be entered in Campus like a new form? I am going to have to defer that one to Mike. Sarah, we can plan on setting a call up with your firm as well if you just want to send me um, your email address. I know I've got it, but if you just want to send me a private message so I remember to schedule that, that would be great. Heidi, QRCs have created drafts of forms, but when they go back into Campus, the drafts are gone. So something that's very important to remember with the drafts, and this is something that we actually covered in our last answer hour. I'll go back into my test environment and show you all an example of this. So the drafts are only going to remain in draft status for 21 days. Now, we did take a feedback item to see if there was a way that we could extend that, just because we know with the timing of how you all do your work, 21 days is going to be cutting it pretty darn close for you. Something that you can do if you've got rehab drafts sitting here that look like they're getting close to that 21 days, if you open your draft back up, and then go back down and save it as a draft, it's going to update your update date, which means it resets your 21 days. So Heidi, I'm guessing that that is likely what you were running into. You could have had some of those QRCs. You can see here my date got updated on that one. You could have some of those that just hit that 21-day expiration date. And if you, yeah, so I see you said some of them were created this week. If you can send me some examples of that, I want to get that documented, and we add that as something for a topic for us to look into for next week. Out of curiosity, I know Heidi just mentioned that they're experiencing that issue with those drafts. Has anybody else noticed that recently created drafts are missing from your documents? If so, just please add that to the chat so that we can get an idea. So I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat right now, but keep those coming if you have them. I did want to cover our Campus Central page. So we've talked about our Campus Central page a couple times in the past, and this is kind of our one-stop shop for information. And essentially, what we're going to start doing with this is we want to start updating it so that our release notes are more up to date. So essentially getting you all information about what was fixed specifically for you all as rehab providers every week when we do our weekly releases. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this link in the chat. It's a really good link to have. Basically, we do our releases on Thursday nights. I highly recommend that if you want to follow those releases, that you take a look on Fridays or Mondays to see what was released in our most recent update. So again, just to repeat, those releases typically go out Thursdays. And so that information is usually going to be available probably late Friday. I'm going to put that in the chat. And there was just a comment that a user is having an issue getting into the drafts and getting a not authorized message. If anybody else is experiencing that, please let me know that. And Connie, I'll make a note for us to follow up with you as well. Stacy, that's a really good question. So can you review how group admins, rather than admin support, would have access to cases belonging to other QRCs as backup? Let me see here. I'm not sure if I have Mark on the call. He knows a little bit more about that specific functionality. I believe that it is limited to the related individuals. Is that correct?
Hi, Angie. Yeah, I'm here. I believe that's correct. Yes.
I know that is a feedback item that we've gotten from a number of individuals, something that you can look at as well. So I'll just show you guys where you can find the rehab cases. And I would need to double check. I believe that this is all the rehab cases for the firm. I'm just not 100% sure on the visibility. I would need to do a little research. But if you wanted to see anything that's kind of listing the firm, what you can do is you can click on your entity details page, go to the related claims and cases. Obviously, you're not going to have any claims here, but your rehab cases would show up. So you can see here we've got a number of cases. As I mentioned, since this is my test account, I am not 100% sure if these are just my cases, but that is something that I will do some additional research for. You can see we've got some disputes here where my rehab firm is also listed. But I'll do some additional research on that one, Stacy. And I know that's feedback that we have gotten before. I apologize. I just went on mute. I think we've got about 7 minutes left. So with that, I want to run through the answer hour schedule for next week. So we've got a rehab provider answer hour currently scheduled for Friday of next week. As we mentioned in our previous answer hour, we are going to reach out and do some one-on-one meetings on Monday and Tuesday with QRC firms this week. If you all are interested in any of those, please send those requests. You can send them to myself, you can send them to Mike Hill, or you can even just add them to the chat, and we can get those scheduled with your firm. Those would be Monday and Tuesday. Additionally, something that we've kind of been gauging interest with, especially with these group admin answer hours, is just whether or not you all feel that this is something that you'd like to continue. We are going to alter the cadence a little bit. We likely will schedule these every other week if we were to continue them rather than every week. But just if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat if you would like to if you would like to continue these group admin answer hours, specifically if you think it's something that we could cover in the larger group, or if you think it's helpful to keep them just to rehab providers, any feedback in the chat is welcome. If you all don't think that these are necessary, we can definitely discontinue this series of meetings as well. So I see here I just got another question in the chat. So as a group administrator, if I don't see all of our QRC's claims, do I need to send an email to the help desk, or is this something you are looking at in general? I see all of our QRCs are members of our group, and I see about 10 claims, but probably missing 100. Dawn, I think that's something that we should look at when we talk next week, but I am going to research a little bit further into the case visibility for the entire firm. Okay, so I'm seeing we might be able to combine these with the larger group answer hour. Then I'm also seeing some feedback that it might be helpful to keep them separate. So for right now, I think we'll plan on keeping this series intact. We likely will schedule another meeting for this group specifically on the week of the 14th. So not next week, but the following week. And then we'll just kind of gauge from there if it's something that we think we need to continue with. If you are somebody who has people who are stuck in pending yet, please feel free to send that to me directly. Otherwise, you can send it to the help desk and they will forward it my way. All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this answer hour a few minutes early, give you guys back 3 minutes. Hopefully you all have a lovely rest of your day and a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to interacting with you all more next week, and really appreciate your patience with us as we kind of work through the issues of the system. Thanks, everybody.